So on our webinar today, we have Eric Zemmel from Tab Computers, myself, Rebecca Alkmaar from Tab as well. We have Evan Bush from Blackpoint and Justin Weller from Blackpoint. Looks like we have everyone set, ready to go, so we can take it away. All right.
So go ahead, Justin. You've got
Evan?
the floor.
Yeah, Evan and
I've got
Justin,
the
you guys
floor.
want to start?
Oh,
Yep, you're all
man, so
set.
sorry about that. That's so cool. Evan, do you want to kind of kick us off and then I'll jump in afterwards? My apologies.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so thanks everyone for coming on and hearing about how we are powering the PatrolDOG MDR. We got Justin Weller here. He is our Director of Product Marketing and the best in the business, and probably the second top face of Blackpoint after our founder and CEO, John Murchison.
That's funny, man. Well, yeah, well, thank you very much. I'm sorry for everyone having to see my second top face today. I apologize for that. No, I'm just joking. But yeah, no, just want to say first off, thanks everyone for hopping on this call. We know that it's really difficult to get some time away in 2023. So we really just kind of appreciate it a ton. And in this climate, we may as well be asking you for a year, right? So just want to say thanks a ton. But, you know, what I wanted to come on today, we're actually really excited to have this conversation to partner with Tab and really kind of provide a solution that helps, you know, them help you defend against the modern threat landscapes. You know, the reality of the situation is we have to have a layered approach today, right, in the cybersecurity product. I mean, I remember when I first got into IT, you know, or when it first started coming out, you know, AV was what you needed. Then you needed email filtering. Then you needed EDR. Then that wasn't enough. And we had to keep adding all these different things. Why is that? That's because the landscape is becoming significantly more sophisticated. That's just the reality of the situation. And I'm going to preface this by saying I'm not a fear, uncertainty, and doubt guy. I'm not a person that says, "Oh, the boogeyman's always going to come to get you." But we also do need to make sure that we're empowering you to understand what the real threats are that are out there. And there's a literal army of people that are trying to obfuscate themselves from these traditional solutions. So before I kind of jump into a lot of this stuff, I wanted to really kind of give you a quick rundown on who I am. My name is Justin Weller. I'm the Director of Product Marketing over here at Blackpoint Cyber. I've been an IT hobbyist pretty much my entire life. I've spent 6 years in various IT service provider roles. I spent the last 4 years experience at various MSP-focused vendors and IT service provider-focused vendors. And really my goal is to just help IT personnel and their end users sleep better at night. That's kind of why I wake up and do what I do every day. But when it comes to Blackpoint, our why is a little bit more broad. We want to be able to deliver an ecosystem of security products that are based on industry standard best practices like NIST and different types of frameworks that are out there that allows for standardization, simplification of security, but also delivers an extremely high watermark for cyber resiliency, allowing MSPs, small to medium-sized businesses, and enterprise organizations to shift competency as far left of boom as humanly possible. And we'll talk about the boom here in just a couple of minutes, because I want to talk about what we do, but I can't talk about what we do really until I first talk about who it is that we are at Blackpoint. And I can't talk about who we are without first talking about John Murchison, our founder and CEO at Blackpoint. So John Murchison, he spent 12 years in the NSA. He's a ridiculously good network engineer. He holds many, many patents, but he also has 12 years worth of experience at the NSA. Now, here's what I will say, elephant in the room. If you've ever heard any security company talk in the last, you know, six to 8 months, everyone's playing some sort of, you know, government security card. I'm gonna be the first person to say that out here. Here's what actually makes John a little bit different, though. For those of you that may not know, NSA, about 95% of them is actually reactionary. It's kind of hands on keyboard, a defensive posture, stopping things from happening to the US. John, however, he was part of the 5% that was running high profile offensive missions. Basically, he was doing things that if he was successful, we didn't really hear anything about. And if he was unsuccessful, it was kind of news at 11 kind of stuff. So when he got out of the NSA, he said to himself, listen, I have spent a career hiding myself and getting around all of these traditional security methods, EDR, firewalls, using this concept called live off the land tradecraft, which we'll talk about here in a couple of moments as well. Well, what if I were to build a product that were to stop me? And that is really how Blackpoint Cyber got started 7-8 years ago. Since then, we've added Mike Yang from our CFO from Juniper and Cisco, Javier Salinas, Chief Technology Officer. We've got some incredible security chops from the DoD, NSA, Microsoft, Cylance, U.S. Army, and an engineering team as well. And we've got some high-tier investment partners. But this slide is basically here to show you that pretty much 100% of what we've built here is all done in-house. We own everything. We own all the solutions, all the proprietary things. So that way you as an organization can know that, hey, listen, as a business, I'm going to be protected by a team of people that are elite at what they do. But let's kind of jump into some of the meat and potatoes of what we want to talk about here today. So I talked to you about this concept of the boom, and that's this right here, this little boom. Shout out to my marketing team for this really cool little graphic here. But when we say the boom, okay, when we're talking about cybersecurity, or if we're talking about some sort of a military endeavor, the boom is essentially when any kind of threat actor has executed their end game. Whether it's ransomware, whether it's data exfiltration, or a combination of the both, which is called double extortion, where they'll siphon data out, hit you with the ransomware, and whether you pay it or you don't, they try to keep coming back to the well, right? Regardless of what it is, that is when they've executed their attack. Now, this is not when they get into your network. This is not while they're in your network. This is not while they're doing recon, any of those things. This is the boom. Everything left of that accomplishment is going to be where your preventative measures, everything to the right of it is going to be the kind of recovery side of the house. So why am I showing you this here today? Well, we wanted to talk a little bit about kind of defense in depth, the NIST framework, those kinds of things as well. And, when it comes to that concept of defense in depth, here's what makes it really, really difficult. It's more of like a philosophy, right? I can ask 10 different people in IT what defense in depth means, and they're going to give me a slightly different answer. But in a nutshell, defense in depth basically says this: like previously 10 years ago, right, the sophistication of attacks wasn't there. We only had to worry about protecting certain things. But as the attacks evolved, as new doors get opened up into networks, as 0 days and those kinds of things get shown, we've got to continuously add layers of defense to make sure that we stop all those things. Does that mean that we get rid of all the stuff that we did before? No, it's not a, this instead of this. It's a, hey, this on top of this at this point. So it becomes difficult when you build out these defense in-depth methodologies and these defense in-depth plans, because again, they are rather subjective. So what did we do as an organization and an industry to be able to combat that and kind of put some edges around it? Well, we created frameworks. And really what it boils down to, there's a lot of different frameworks that are out there. There's CMMC, there's, CIS frameworks, there's NIST frameworks, those kinds of things. And this is really where it kind of can be kind of daunting, so to speak. A lot of these are industry specific, right? CMMC is going to be more geared towards government contracts, those kinds of things, right? CIS has a little bit more to do with cloud sometimes. But really, one of the most popular and the most all-encompassing solutions out there is the NIST platform. And there's really going to be 5 main pillars that we've kind of made them a little bit agnostic in this, but really this is kind of what, if you align yourself to this particular frameworks and this particular style, which is what Tab has been able to do in a lot of their product stack offerings, it allows you as a business to know that you have an extremely high watermark of cyber resiliency regardless of the industry vertical that you're in. So let's just kind of walk through some of these things really quick. The first pillar is asset visibility, okay? This is going to be, the concept is really simple here. If I don't know what to protect, can't protect it, right? It's kind of that simple, right? So we've got to know what we can protect. And this is where Tab has got a lot of really cool things internally to be able to keep track of the devices that they're managing, software that's on those devices, user account levels. Our product can help them out with live network mapping, as well as the ability to kind of have good network documentation, those kinds of things. Pretty simple pillar. The second thing is hardening. We want to make sure that we can harden the networks and systems as much as humanly possible, okay? Now, this is going to be things like, multi-factor authentication, maybe principle of least privilege, where Tab wants to make sure that, hey, people are only utilizing or getting access to exactly what they need access to at the highest level that they need to do their jobs, and for only the amount of time that they need to do it for. That way we don't have privilege sprawl and this person can access this over here for longer than they need to. The goal here, guys, is to really make sure that we reduce the attack surface, make it as small as humanly possible. So we know what to protect. We've made the target small at this point. Well, this is where we get into the third pillar. If we've done those first two, well, why do we even need to worry about this, right? I've got these software solutions that are out there. I've got these firewalls. I've got all these different things. The fact of the matter is, people are still getting around these. And this pillar right here, this is where I think that it's been very, very difficult for the cybersecurity community to be able to get the knowledge in the hands of end users, right? So I like to ask really easy questions here at Blackpoint. So I do a lot of like different main stages and stuff like that. And I always ask the question, raise your hand if you've heard of malware before. The entire room raises their hand, right? I mean, everyone's raising their hand. And I'm fairly confident that if I could see all the video people on here, everybody would be raising their hand as well, because everyone knows what malware is. It's been around for 40 years. And this is going to be things like malicious code. This is going to be stuff like malicious software that runs on devices. And really, this is where your endpoint detection and response, your next-gen antivirus, software fighting software, that's kind of where this is going to land you, as well as kind of known bad. It oftentimes is, does some behavioral analysis, but it's really, hey, if I can see these things happen, I know to do this. The next question that I like to ask, though, is who's heard of live off the land tradecraft before? And usually the hands plummet to the floor. And this is where we really want to make sure that you're aware as a business owner what live off the land tradecraft is. So live off the land tradecraft is really more or less the behavior that threat actors are implementing when it comes to identifying where they're at in the network and laterally spreading. And here's the problem, right? The problem is that hackers, what they're going to do is this. They're going to remotely access machines. They're going to push and pull files off those machines. They're going to install malicious software. They're going to try to jump to other devices. They're going to try to get information on the network. Well, what do your IT people do? They remotely access machines. They push and pull software. They push and pull. They do the exact same things. And here's the problem. The EDR and the next-gen antivirus solutions, they know that this is legitimate IT behavior. So threat actors are mimicking IT people to obfuscate themselves and hide themselves from these EDR solutions that are out there. Their goal is to utilize legitimate system admin tools, legitimate IT tool software to automate their playbooks and hide themselves from that EDR solution. And this is why you need the next pillar here, which is going to be real-time response. We hear stats all the time. Threat actors are in networks for 978,000 days before they get caught. Listen, when we're talking about nation state espionage, we're talking about things like, maybe like massive enterprises spying on other massive enterprises, which I'm sure never happens, right? But when we're talking about that, yeah, their goal is to never get caught. They want to be in there as long as humanly possible, and they want to gain the intel. When we're talking small to medium-sized businesses, these people that are ransomware operators or whatever it is, they're looking to get in and get out. They have officially prioritized speed over stealth. They know there's a lot of they know cybersecurity is on a hot pet. They're using encryption algorithms that are significantly faster than the previous ones. They are finding themselves doing things like partial encryption now, where they're not even waiting to encrypt the entire file. They're encrypting pieces of the file. So the file's still unusable to you as a business, but it's significantly faster to be able to hit that ransomware payload and those kinds of things as well. So that's why real-time response. And what we've got to do here is what I love that Tab has done is they've come along with an assume breach mentality. That's what the goal here is when it comes to responding. They're starting with the assumption that, hey, at some point, we're going to pretend like a breach has already happened, and our plan is to work backwards from there. The last thing you want to do is test your response plan in the middle of an event, right? They have not done that. They've aligned themselves to these types of frameworks to make sure that that doesn't happen. Now, all of this stuff is preventative, right? However, nothing is going to be 100%, right? We can put every single thing into play. And so because of that, you still want to make sure that you have this last pillar here, which is going to be incident recovery. This is going to be a recover killer. Now, this is going to be things like digital forensics, incident response, good breach counsel, cyber insurance policies, disaster recovery, even better business continuity, where it's actually tested and verified and those kinds of things as well. But here's the key. If you can cover these 5 pillars, which is based off of NIST, we've got to have asset visibility, we've got to harden the networks, we've got to detect, we've got to respond, and then we've got to recover. If we can cover these 5 pillars, you're going to put yourself at about 85% cyber resilient, and you are going to be in a fantastic spot regardless of the industry that you're in. So here's kind of like, everyone's like, well, that's great, Justin. So why are you even here, right? What do you do? Well, this is why we want to see, where do threat actors actually live? And threat actors actually live in pillar 3. And this is the hacker timeline. So here's where it becomes really difficult to catch this stuff, okay? So I've already told you that this tradecraft that they have, it's very, very difficult for EDR and traditional software solutions to find them. Does that mean that we don't use them? No. We still need them. Malware is still a thing. All of these things, they're still excellent tools, but you also need to have the human side of the equation as well. So the problem with the tradecraft is this. The bookends we see here, planning and completing objective, always stay the same. They always plan. They always want to get to the end. What happens in between, though, is not linear. The kill chain is never the exact same. Again, sometimes they do drop a ransomware payload. Sometimes they scan the network to gather information. Sometimes they try to escalate privileges. Sometimes they try to jump to different machines from the machine that they landed on. Regardless of the order of operation, you need to make sure that you have the ability to have a software solution that can correlate those events into one event, regardless of the order, for those elite response times. And that is where we sit inside of our platform. That is where managed detection and response comes into play, with a 24/7 SOC that is led by active, proactive threat hunters. Our goal here is to continuously take a look at multiple pieces of identification and have the ability to gather that telemetry and correlate everything into one event. So that way we have the ability to not just identify that there has been something, but take action immediately. Here at Blackpoint, we've got a 15-minute service level objective. What that basically means is we are contracted to say, hey, we'll take a look at something within 15 minutes. Here's where it gets really, really cool. From the time that an alert comes in to the time that we have triaged it, sent it to a level 2 technician, and we isolate the device, so we have the ability to kick the threat actor out of the on-premise devices, the cloud response areas, whatever it is, we have the ability to stop that attack in its tracks and keep an eye on the rest of the network to make sure that it hasn't spread. We're averaging about 14.5 minutes, not to touch the ticket, but to actually resolve the problem. When we're talking about cloud attacks, which we're seeing a massive, massive increase on for M365 and Google, it's right around 7.5 minutes. So that's all due to the fact that we have the ability to detect and respond in a reasonable and an extremely reasonable period of time, because we take those different events, we correlate them into one event so we can see the attack as it's unfolding, not waiting until after it's done to be able to take a look here. Now, the last piece that I want to show here is I want to kind of talk a little bit about this. Take a look at these 5 pillars, and this is where we have with the MDR solution. We have put ourselves in a position. We didn't just build out an ecosystem of products that we say, oh, we like these. We think small businesses and enterprises would love this stuff. We actually purpose-built our stack on industry standard best practices aligned to NIST. We've got live network mapping, vulnerability and hygiene reporting. We can harden your Azure 365 environments. We can, do live detection, curated zero trust for application control. We can integrate and orchestrate EDR alerts, as well as ransomware response. All these different things are designed to keep you as far away from this boom as humanly possible. So that's kind of what we do here. That's it in a nutshell. Did I talk slow enough? Was everyone cool? I know I'm a really slow talker, so I want to make sure that I kept everybody on board here. Was that helpful? Was this kind of what we were looking for today?
Justin, you did a great job. I mean, the primary reason we use your product is that NIST compliance, because you do knock off a lot of the compliance requirements, especially here in Connecticut with our sub manufacturers. They're below the primes, the Pratt & Whitneys, the Raytheons, the Sikorskys, who need to make sure they're protecting their CUI data. And your product does a really good job checking those boxes and securing that for our clients. So I think you did explain it very, very well. Now, you did bring up kind of quickly, as you said, the cloud attacks. Evan talked a little bit before our webinar about the percentages of attacks that are happening now are more happening against 365 and Google than ever before.
It's like 10 to 1.
Right. So when those attacks occur, can you explain a little bit more to folks as to what the attackers are doing? I mean, you kind of explained how they got into the network, but this is not into your network. This is into Microsoft's network.
Well, there's a couple of really cool different stories that are not cool. I don't like saying cool. I like saying, listen, I'm a nerd. Everybody, let me throw this out there first off. Okay, I'm a super big nerd, so I don't want to give praise, but the sophistication, like listen, these people may be immoral, but they're not stupid. Do you know what I mean? I mean, they're smart people. They're just playing for the wrong teams. But there's a couple of different stories that I want to talk about here. So number one, there's two different sides. When people hear like, Microsoft 365 so often, or end users oftentimes hear like Google Workspace, they immediately go towards email. And that's part of it. Let me say that's part of it. But the holy grail for every hacker in the world from the beginning of time has been legitimate access. Legitimate access. If they can find a way to get legitimate access into the area that has the information that they're looking for, that's what they want. So people ask, well, why do we see that the identity attack has been so much higher? Well, what have we done in the last 3 years? We've taken everything and moved it to the cloud. We've put everything in Microsoft and Google Workspaces because that's where the gold is now. Are there still on-premise locations that have data? 100%, but the overwhelming majority is in there. So when we're talking about these M365 and Google Workspaces, there's really two sides of the house. There is the identity side, right, which uses your email to log in. Like how many times have you gone to a website and it says, well, just use your Microsoft account to log in, or just use your Google Workspace account to log in. That's the identity. They are utilizing your M365 or Google identity to be able to get into not just Microsoft services, but also third-party services as well. Now, that does also include email, right? But it includes SharePoint, it includes OneDrive, it includes Office application access, it includes all those things. That identity is utilized to authenticate all of these different pieces. Now, that's the big reason why we've seen the massive uptick in it as well. What's cool with our situation is that we have the ability to identify the types of behavioral and the tradecraft and the different types of things that are in there for us to be able to not just identify that an attack has happened, but we have the ability to revoke what's called our tokens, which are basically what's used to authenticate and verify you are who you say you are. So we can revoke those tokens, but here's where it gets cool. It's not just for the Microsoft or the Google side of the house. It's for literally all those third parties as well. And on the Microsoft side, we've created our own inside proprietary software that allows us to identify what application used that M365 as well. So that way we've got the ability to say, hey, listen, if you've used your Microsoft account in 14 different places, well, guess what? Your Microsoft account was used maliciously, but it was used on this particular third-party website. So go handle that one first. So imagine having 15 different logins. They've all been revoked. And now you got to go on a Safari to try to figure out which one got breached. With our product, you don't have to worry about that. We're going to help you and kind of understand on that. The last piece that I wanted to talk about is this is something that just happened a few months ago where you heard me say this concept called lateral spread. Lateral spread basically means this. I don't know if anyone here has played the game Civilization before, but I'm a big Civilization guy. And the way that this game works is that it's a game of exploration and building out your civilization, right? And so the way that it starts is there's this massive map, okay? But when you start, you get dropped in this little tiny part of the map, and you can only have visibility around this little area. Now, your job is to go explore. You've got to identify what are the resources, where can I build, what's the best place to build, who's in this game, how powerful am I? Same thing with threat actors. When they get into a device, they have no idea where they're at. They don't know if it's a desktop, if it's a laptop, if it's a server, if it's a part of the domain, if it's in an office, outside of an office, on a beach somewhere using a 5G. They have no idea. So what they've got to do is start exploring, and when they do that, they say, well, what else is on this network? Oh, this device is over here. Let me see if I can get to that with the credentials that I have. And then they start kind of moving around the network. Traditionally, lateral spread is from on-premise to on-premise. I've got a desktop in a server in an office, and I'm trying to get to the server. Or I've got a cloud account where I'm trying to get to another portion of this cloud infrastructure. The first time ever that I can think of where we identified there was a cloud to on-premise lateral spread we found an organization that somehow their admin account for M365 got breached. They became an Intune admin, and then they jumped into Intune. For those of you that don't know what Intune is, it's a management platform that Microsoft puts into play to help keep things up to date, but also can deliver software and policies and those kinds of things. And they took and they created a script to deploy malware from the cloud to the endpoint devices themselves. And I can't think of another, and this is not me being a homer, I literally cannot think of another service in the world that would have been able to catch them. Because here's where it's unique. We weren't monitoring their cloud accounts. We were only monitoring their on-premise devices. We have the ability to see that this malware that we detected with our tradecraft detection was coming from Intune. We then went in there and we deployed cloud response proactively after the breach had already happened and found 10 other instances of compromised accounts. That is the type of level of sophistication that's happening, but it's also the type of level of sophistication that we're stopping as well. So really long answer to a short question. Sorry about that. But hopefully that kind of covered what you were looking for there, Eric.
Yeah, it does. And the key here in Connecticut is our legislature did have the foresight to kind of set up a safe harbor for companies who at least were trying to become NIST compliant. So if and when they were possibly breached, as you talked about, we operate from the fact that we assume you are going to be breached.
Right.
That at least if they tried, they would kind of mitigate some of the damages or liability that they might be faced with. So in this case, your tool can actually help to knock off a ton of those NIST requirements, so you can head
100%.
toward being more NIST compliant as a company, no matter how big or how small. We like to focus on offering solutions that are affordable to small to mid-sized companies. That is one of the reasons we chose Blackpoint as our MDR solution. And they offer a tiered approach to things. So besides, the 365 support and the other aspects that Justin talked about, they have a SEM product as well. If you're looking to have logging and all that happening for you, whether or not you need to be CMMC and have that data collected. So Tab can offer all that under the MDR umbrella for you as a client.
Completely true.
So anything
Cool.
else you want to chat about, Justin, at all that we missed?
I mean, I think I said enough, but now I'm super happy to chat about whatever you guys would like to chat about. Are there any questions? Did I miss any questions? Did anybody have any questions they wanted to kind of jump in on, or anything of that nature that maybe I missed?
Anything in the chat, Rebecca?
No, I don't see anything in the chat.
Yeah. Justin did cover a lot of stuff, and it hopefully didn't scare you. But it is
Looks like we might have a question. Go ahead, Tom.
Sure.
Yeah, I have a question. How about remote users? We have maybe 5 or remote users that use their own PC to log into our PC. We have the MDR software, and I think we have pretty much everything that Tab offers for security. But what we're concerned about is, someone goes home and their kid's on that PC.
Yeah.
You don't know what's on that PC. Could anything from that PC get into our PC? And we use TeamViewer to as a remote software.
Well, I don't want to speak for Tab here, but from a security perspective and kind of where I came from, I am a person that always thinks that you can never be too protected. And so I'm the kind of person that, would say, hey, if you've got 5 or 6 users that are utilizing home devices to remote in, I personally would have a conversation with them about, again, this is Justin, the IT guy talking, not Justin, the Tab person talking. I want to be really clear here. But I personally would have the conversation and say, hey, what would it look like to get agents on those devices as well? Because there is, for instance, another really weird story. There was an instance about 1.5 years ago where there was an executive at a company that we were managing that had their company-owned laptop that they were using from their home. And their son had a jailbroken Xbox, and a threat actor was able to get into the jailbroken Xbox and then laterally spread onto the endpoint device. So it's insane what they are doing, is my point behind all of this stuff, right? Is that a common thing? Do you need to protect against that? Probably not, right? But I just want to tell you, that's kind of the thing. So that's why I'm always of the effect of like, hey, we might want to talk a look in there because I personally can't think of a specific way they could jump in. but I also didn't think I had to worry about my employees' kids' Xboxes either.
Yeah, Tom, we would recommend that the employees have company offered laptops so that you could offer all those security stack securities to protect you. I mean, LastPass also had their engineer impacted by a unpatched Plex server. So
that's
there's
plenty
of examples of compromised devices that are in other networks. So, you know, that'd be our recommendation. Have a company offered device to your users.
So I could do either a PC or a laptop.
Correct.
Just a small PC that we have.
Yep. And that way it'll have the stack on it.
Yeah, and here's what's really good. There's no like additional hardware requirements or anything of that nature. Like you don't need to install appliance for our solution at all. It's literally one agent to rule them all. I know that Tab can deploy it really, really easy. And then you know that our team, along with Tab's team, are working very, very closely together to make sure that everything is being watched 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions, Rebecca?
Tom. Yeah, no, none in the chat, but does anyone else have any other questions about what we talked about or any concerns, comments?
All right. Well, thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. This was a really informative webinar, and I think that those of us that were on the call really got a lot out of it.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate you having us on, and man, we love talking about this stuff. I don't know if you can tell, I enjoy it a lot.
We can tell, Justin.
But it's great though to meet like it's great to meet a fellow geek that's like excited about all this stuff.
Well, I hide it pretty well. So I want to make sure if I didn't say something, you guys wouldn't know. Cool. Well, hey, thanks everybody so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Very good. Have a good one, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good one, guys.
Bye.
Bye.